Is Bitcoin selling out? Is it becoming part of clown world? Is it going too mainstream? Today we're going to talk about the Bitcoin 2024 conference. We're going to go over a few clips and highlights from some of the big names and some of the interesting things we've heard. We got some remarks. We're two old school Bitcoiners, entrepreneurs. We're concerned about the future trajectory of Bitcoin, and that's why we're building down here in El Salvador.
What's up, guys? So, yeah, we're here in El Salvador. El Salvador has adopted Bitcoin as legal tender. It's the real deal, right? And so, yeah, it feels good being here. It feels good watching the Bitcoin 2024 conference from afar, seeing all the highlights and shenanigans that took place, and now we get to break it down and comment on it a little bit.
Yeah, I don't know if it's because we live here or just in general. I just feel like I'm very far removed from everything I saw at that conference. Like I've never really gone to those conferences. I've never really been into that kind of thing. But seeing, I mean, just seeing Trump there, seeing some of these names there, I'm like, wow, Bitcoin has broken out to the mainstream. Like, what is happening?
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I go back and forth with that, right? Yes, Trump is at the conference, but Kamala Harris could have been at the conference too, from what I heard. There were like rumors, but she decided not to go. So it's like, is Bitcoin pandering to the politicians? I know that they paid Trump a ridiculous amount of money, or I assume they did. I saw a few tweets on that. And I know
think they gave him a Bitcoin at the end too.
And they gave him a Bitcoin. So it's like, it's Bitcoiners groveling at the feet of politicians. It's kind of cringy in my opinion, but I guess to the world, it's a signal that Bitcoin's for real. It's breaking out into the mainstream. We got politicians giving speeches at Bitcoin conferences. It's we got traditional finance breaking into the space, ETFs happening. So it's now one of those things where Bitcoin can't be scoffed at anymore. It can't be laughed away. People have to take it seriously now. I guess that's the impression that people are getting.
Yeah, and my question is, as this happens, what does it mean for Bitcoin? Now, obviously, anyone that's into Bitcoin is in it for different reasons, right? We all got different values, different principles that we believe Bitcoin adheres to,
embodies
in its own way.
Yeah, and its architecture and design.
But if you listen to Trump talk, you listen to a lot of these people talk, it's almost like it's just about money now. Like, we're going to protect your investments, right? Maybe that's why Trump is there, right? Because this is, being broadcast to TV. Wow, Trump went to Bitcoin 2024. Bitcoin's a real asset now. And yes, at the conference, there's people talking about what I believe is the real battlefront of Bitcoin, which is privacy and self-sovereignty over your money and things like that.
Self-custody.
Yeah, right? But there's definitely, I feel like this divergence is getting stronger. And I know you tweet about it a lot, but like people are just in it to watch the number go up instead of like the core values of Bitcoin.
Yeah, they just see it as kind of a financial asset and not like this tool for monetary revolution and liberation that,
no war money, baby.
Yeah, they almost see it as part of the fiat paradigm. It's like, hey, this is another item on your balance sheet, on your dollar denominated balance sheet, as opposed to, a completely new thing, new paradigm that's emerging and going to change, the future trajectory of humanity and how we interact in an economy, right?
Yeah, and I would say that's almost like the arc of what we have to talk about today. So we'll start with Trump because that seems like the logical starting point. And I think we close out with Snowden and Eric Kaysen. So we'll go from full status to complete anti-status and I guess dystopic perspective on what's really going on.
Awesome.
So let's pull up the first clip, Matt.
Hello, Bitcoiners. Thank you very much. Hello. It's good to be with you. It's good to be with you.
Crazy amount of applause there.
To be here in Nashville to become the first American president ever to address a Bitcoin event anywhere in the world. But as well as all of the Bitcoin luminaries and legends here, you have legends in this room. They really are. Congratulations. Would the legends please stand? Oh, everyone's standing anyway. That's nice. Because we have to talk about crypto. We have to talk about Bitcoin. We have to
Oh,
talk
pause
about
real
all
quick.
these
This is what he
great
kept doing.
companies.
I was trying to watch the live stream and he kept just lumping in crypto and Bitcoin together. Crypto and Bitcoin, crypto and Bitcoin. I think he even mentions AI in there. And it was like, he doesn't even know who he's talking, like why he's there. Once
Yeah.
again, it's just, oh, here's the asset that's worth a lot of money now. Trump, come and talk to it so these people with money can help lobby for you, can help campaign for you.
Yeah, and I've watched a few Trump speeches, and Trump's good. He's good at giving a show. He has this bravado about him. He has this persona, and he just like overlays it, and panders to whatever group he's talking to.
He's
right?
also hilarious.
Yeah, he's funny. He has like these inflection tones in his voice, and then he adds like little ad lib comments and side jabs in there every once in a while that are just freaking hilarious.
Yeah.
And so you watch him. He's an entertainer. That's what he is. And so he takes his spiel and he just overlays it to whatever group he's talking to, whether he's talking to Christians or Jews or Bitcoiners. It's always like, hey, I'm Trump. I'm here. I'm your guy. I'm the guy who represents you. That those other people, they don't have your interests in mind. It's all about, me, and I'm going to do it, and I'm going to do it big. I'm going to do it great. And I'm going to make America amazing, great again. You know what I mean? It's the whole spiel that he does, and it doesn't, he just takes that spiel and he just overlays it to whatever group he's talking to.
Yeah, and I mean, it's been a few days since I watched the live stream, but in like the very beginning, he's like shouting out Israel. I think he was talking about a new attack on Israel or whatever. And it's like, oh, horrible, horrible. And essentially just showing what side he's on, right? And I feel like, once again, this hat, is like, here we are essentially helping fund that whole war over there. Like, forget about sides. It's just like the fiat paradigm helps fund war and death and all this bullshit that no one wants anymore. And here he is promoting it in the beginning. And so, yeah, and then all that applause, and he's coming out, and then he was shouting out Jake Paul in the beginning. He's just shouting out all these names. I'm like, what does any of this have to do with? I mean, like I said, without shouting out Israel like that, it's like against Bitcoin, even, right? Like it's just promoting the war machine.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think when I listen to Trump speak about Bitcoin, I don't think he particularly understands it or is that sophisticated in regards to Bitcoin. And RFK did a good job. We'll cut to a RFK clip here in a second, but he did a good job calling Trump out and actually warning the Bitcoiners. Is like, hey, is Trump just talking a big game here to get your votes? Because he tried to ban self-custody last time he was in office.
Did he really?
Well, according to RFK, I don't remember exactly what
he talked a lot of shit about Bitcoin when he was in office.
Yeah,
I remember that because there's the bull run too.
Yeah, and he believes in the fiat system. He's a fiat guy. He got wealthy, with in that whole fiat paradigm, and so he talks about Bitcoin as just being an asset, just being a complement to the dollar versus like an actual, like I said, monetary revolution. And so, RFK, when we go to this clip, but he was just basically calling out Trump as like, hey, be careful. He's just whispering sweet nothings in your ear versus, how much does he actually believe and embody the Bitcoin ethos?
Should we keep watching that clip?
I'm kind of good off Trump.
Yeah, we already done. We had some other notes. I just want to say, so there was some good YouTube comments that I was seeing in that live stream, and I just have two I wrote down here, but like one of them, which like it sounds obvious and simple, but like Trump doesn't even realize he's at an event that's not his fan base. That's not 100% his fan base.
But they are. You heard the applause, you heard the cheering.
That's true. Or maybe it was just because it was like such a big name and everyone's like, woohoo, Bitcoin, Trump's here. It's legitimizing us, right? Like something like that, to the tune of like, woohoo, our Bitcoin's going to be worth more money.
The other thing is, it was very clear he was reading off the teleprompter, right? And then just ad-libbing, his typical Trump persona in here and there.
And then the other comment I saw was basically a good TLDR. So his energy policy will support Bitcoin mining and AI. He'll protect your right to self-custody. He'll create a strategic Bitcoin reserve with the 210,000 Bitcoin confiscated from illicit activities. He will appoint a Bitcoin Presidential Advisory Council, and there will never be a CBDC as long as he's president. So shout out to PNAMI3712 for that comment. It was a good TLDR.
Yeah.
And once again, it's all just pandering. Right?
Maybe again, RFK. Like we should go to RFK.
Yeah, let's go to RFK.
But before we do, let me just say something. You're wearing a no war money hat, and I'm wearing a Bitcoin. So I just want to shout out where I got this from, right? I got it from Corey at Hodler's Official. Where'd you get that hat from?
I got it from the Bitcoin hardware store, but it's not them that makes it. And I apologize. I don't know your name who makes it, but it's down here in El Salvador.
Nice.
In El Zonte at Bitcoin Beach. You got to come check it out. You can get one at the Bitcoin hardware store. Shout out to Ronnie.
All right. Yeah. So I guess we're going to go to RFK clip, but yeah, man, you got it? Yeah.
So
If
is
you want to
this
go
election
to the
cycle-
2 minute end mark or something like
Yeah, I
that.
think it was 210. 220, yeah, 210.
And I'm grateful to the 50 or 60 million Bitcoiners like Michael Saylor, who were there before me and helped me understand the nation-saving potential of Bitcoin. Every Bitcoiner I know shares my own yearning for freedom, for my skepticism toward official orthodoxies and pronouncements, and an inclination for critical thinking that I most admire. During COVID, neither President Trump nor President Biden protected our constitutional rights. They both restricted our right to assemble, to worship. They closed our churches, no funeral for grandma, no weddings. They closed our businesses without due process or just compensation in violation of the Fifth Amendment. They ended the Seventh Amendment right to jury trials. They assaulted the Fourth Amendment prohibition against warrantless searches and seizures, and also
really laying it out.
administrations allowed the FBI and the spy agencies to suppress our rights to free speech by working with social media companies to deplatform people who criticize government policies. I hope that President Trump's change of heart in Bitcoin is evidence of a newfound and deep-seated commitment to personal freedoms, to our Constitution, to our Bill of Rights.
We
Will
appreciate your
President Trump
optimism,
fight for
RFK
Bitcoin if
Jr.
he's elected? I wish he had mentioned Bitcoin in the RNC speech last week. I'm disappointed. He spent a lot of the last week attacking President Bukele of El Salvador, the only country on a Bitcoin standard. President Bukele is the most popular president in El Salvador's history, and with Bitcoin's help, he has turned the country around. Bitcoin helped him grow the economy and reduce crime. The U.S. should want to take a page from President Bukele's playbook and learn some of the lessons that he has to teach us about Bitcoin.
Which is like, wasn't it just a few days before Bitcoin 2024 that Trump was talking shit about Bukele
Yeah.
in El Salvador?
That's what RFK is referencing. But like
Yeah.
this goes back into, you know, a few shows ago where we were talking about Trump, and we're, you know, this is when we were talking about his assassination attempt. And basically the hero worship that was arising from that. And it's like people have forgotten all the civil rights violations that occurred under his watch, right? And RFK is just reminding people like, hey, don't forget, this is the president that locked you down. This is the president that closed the churches. This is the president that pushed the vaccine. This is the president, right, that still to this day brags about all of it. So it's like, does he have a change of heart, or is he there just pandering, right, and just looking for votes, telling, you know, who would ever thought a politician would tell people what they want to hear in order to, you know, secure their votes, and then, you know, go against what he says once he's in office, right? Not deliver on his promises, right? Like,
That's crazy.
yeah.
Politician not delivering on their promises.
So RFK is just reminding everybody, like, hey, you know, like, I know Trump's here and I know he's talking about Bitcoin, but does he really believe in Bitcoin? Does he really embody the philosophical principles that are embedded in being a Bitcoiner? You know, like, I don't think so, you know? And so
I like RFK Jr. more and more. I'm sorry. I know we don't want to like simp to politicians, but I honestly think like there would be hope if he won. I really think that. It's probably too late, but I think there could be hope if he won.
well, I see politicians in this case, like RFK and like Ron Paul and these people as like message carriers, right? And they're figureheads and they're thought leaders, I guess, in that sense, right? Because yeah, you know, like they, especially ones that get it, and especially ones that use their platform to educate and to promote values, but not only promote values, but help people understand why those are our values. And so, you know, in that case, yeah, I mean, RFK would be way more, I think, way more hopeful than like Trump, for instance.
Yeah, it's a shame he's not more charismatic.
Yeah.
But I mean, I've heard him at some like pretty deep and intimate, just like events that he's invited to, and talking about health, talking about mental health, obviously environmental stuff. He obviously has an idea about Bitcoin, although a lot of people on Twitter have been critical about him just reading the talking points about Bitcoin. But
I mean, Trump did the same thing.
yeah, I mean, but I still think RFK Jr. has a more nuanced approach to, I mean, everything.
Yeah, and there's more depth. I mean, you could tell that he understands Bitcoin at some type of intellectual and philosophical level, just based off of his speech, right? Like,
Yeah.
and Trump, it just felt like everything was surface level. It was like
Yeah.
he's mixing in crypto with Bitcoin, and he's like, basically at the end of Trump's speech, he just like, all right, you Bitcoin people and you crypto people, hope you
Yeah.
guys have a good
Go
time.
have fun,
yeah.
kids.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just kind of like dismissing everyone. And it's like, yeah, that's where Trump's at,
Yeah, I think RFK Jr., just to close that off, I think he's got heart. I think he's a pretty legitimate guy. I'm not saying he's not captured or whatever, but I do think he acts from his heart.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot to prove that in his career. All right, what do we got next? Saifuddin? How do you say his name? Saifuddin?
Safety in a moose. Well, if you, he wrote something today, and so basically people are all excited about, the U.S. federal government creating a Bitcoin treasury, right, and having Bitcoin reserves.
If not now, but if Trump wins, they're excited about that.
Well, they're just excited about the idea, and like to me, it's not an exciting idea, right? Bitcoin empowers individuals, and it empowers people that hold Bitcoin, and so.
But fuck governments.
Yeah. The idea that we want to empower the federal government, and where are they going to get the money to get those to get the Bitcoin, right?
Yeah.
Through taxation,
Through stealing,
or through inflation, so it's like, this is what the Bitcoin crowd is cheering on. It's like, first of all, you want to empower the federal government, and second of all, you want them to buy Bitcoin through, basically theft.
Well, I was thinking about this today because I was looking at the highlight clips we had from a couple episodes ago, and I was commenting on how it's so great to be around happy people in El Salvador, whether it's Bitcoiners here to build or just locals that are experiencing essentially a brand new way of life because the gangs are gone. And I was like, wow, it's so great to be around happy people. And I thought, well, what is the reason that people can be happier now? And you think of all the ways, and I think of how the kids can play outside, and like we don't have to worry about them getting kidnapped and sold into slavery or safety, right? But you think about all these different things, and so like, is Bitcoin the reason things are safe now? Probably not. But the same catalyst adopted Bitcoin, made it safe, right? The president, the administration is doing these things, and I think that these things are all like, if getting a Bitcoin treasury in the United States, if that creates a new, like, even if it's slow going, a new foundation for a new economy, for getting rid of fiat, like that could still be a win for the individual, is my point.
Yeah, it's a good counter argument for sure, right? It's basically an indication that the U.S. is, orienting themselves towards a different direction, right? The decline that we've been facing for the past 50 years is now being turned around, right? Forward.
Slowly but surely.
Yeah. And it's kind of like you were saying, it's like, is the same basket of ideas that made El Salvador, a safe country, also adopt Bitcoin? If that's the case, right, can we expect the same from the United States adopting Bitcoin or creating a treasury? I just don't think that they're going to adopt Bitcoin the way that El Salvador has, right? Where they basically made it legal tender here, right? And you can use Bitcoin to transact. There's no capital gains tax and things of that nature, right? It's literally, they've embraced property rights and free markets here, especially within the Bitcoin ecosystem. I don't think they're doing that in the United States. I don't think they have any plans to. I think they want to keep it as a store of value, and every time you move it, the government needs to know about it. Every time you buy something, you're going to have to pay a capital gains tax on it, and so forth. So that's the way I see the United States going currently. Well, who knows,
And Snowden says some good things about that later too. Okay, so let's read this tweet. It's just a tweet.
Yeah, if you go to the bottom, I think the last paragraph sums it up. You want to read it?
Sure. The real enemy of Bitcoin and humanity is the Fed. The U.S. government is just its tool, and politicians are interchangeable actors that haven't mattered in decades. You're not going to destroy the Fed by promising to vote for one actor over another. Your only chance of destroying it is for Bitcoin to grow larger than the dollar and treasury bonds, and for dollar users to continue to get impoverished into oblivion while Bitcoiners thrive with their superior technology. I humbly suggest you not waste time and sats on the politics circus and work hard to stack sats instead. Couldn't have said it better.
Yeah, again, it's like you're asking the government to disenfranchise itself, right? In a lot of ways by adopting Bitcoin, because all of a sudden the source of its power, the printing press, right, the dollar hegemony, right, now gets displaced through Bitcoin, right, through a superior money. So I don't think they're just willingly going to give up their power to print money, right? And so it seems counterproductive to waste all that time and energy, groveling at the feet of politicians, begging them to adopt Bitcoin. A better use of that time is probably just to build out the parallel economy, to actually use Bitcoin as intended, and to focus on the things in which you can control, right?
Yeah. Yeah. That was really well put. I got to read the rest of that tweet. What do we got next after Saifadian? Is it Dave Smith? Dave said Dave's always fun to listen to. It's just kind of more libertarian talking points, just put in Bitcoin lingo, right?
Yeah, I like what Dave said here because, well, we can play it, but basically he's making, he's making a point that when you look at all the things that are wrong in society, right? And you follow the trail of where it originated, where the corruption originated, it always leads back to the money.
Yeah. Every evil thing done by governments is thanks to printing money.
Yeah, it's not only
maybe not every,
but it's not only everything done by governments, but it's also like, I think about the proliferation of porn, and I think about, inflation and the desperate means or the desperate states that inflation does, and it makes people go search for ways to pull themselves out of it, and it leads them or degeneracy in a lot of cases, right? When people become desperate. So it's like you just look at all the cracks in society and you're like, how did I get there? And you follow it. Money supply.
All right, let's watch this.
The more you learn about money and government control of money, you realize that that is the whole game. Everything else flows from that. Every evil thing that government does is only because they control the money supply. Like, take an evil thing that government does, and I'll explain how it's because they control the money supply, you know? But, I mean, just think about, like, okay, we fought, like, a catastrophic 20-year war in Afghanistan that literally killed hundreds of thousands of people, cost trillions of dollars, and thousands of our bravest young boys died, and then tens of thousands committed suicide in the wake of the war, right? Well, just like imagine if they couldn't print the money for that war. Right. Imagine if they had to tax the American people every month for the war in Afghanistan. You think that thing would have lasted 20 years?
No way. Yeah, there's no way.
To get it through a year.
Yeah.
Before the people
it's the endless wars.
Like, what are you doing here? I mean,
he's making the point with war, right? It's the most obvious point. Like, war is inherently destructive, and it creates immense damage, not only physical damage, emotional damage, societal damage, civilizational damage, right? And it's like that thing can't go on, right? You can't convince people to pay for that, beyond a certain point, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, the distinction is endless wars, right? And Saifadian makes this point in the Bitcoin Standard is like, World War I lasted so long because they started printing money to fund it. It had no real purpose, aside from just a bunch of royalty deciding to fight, for land and letting the commoners die. And, the stories of the French and the Germans playing soccer on Christmas together, because they didn't even know why they were fighting. And it goes back to my hat, no war money, right? It's like, because I grew up we're coming out of that 20-year endless war in Afghanistan, and all of that was like, it wouldn't have happened, right? I mean, arguably it could have kept happening from the profits from all the opium and heroin the CIA and whoever was harvesting from Afghanistan. Maybe you could make that argument, but it's the printing press that allows these wars to just go on forever. Ukraine, Israel, whatever it is, it's going to keep destroying the world thanks to fiat.
Yeah, and again, if you just look at all the places and where there are cracks in the societal infrastructure, I can't talk today. You follow it back. It's because of the money, some type of corruption within the money. Even like you think about the channels in which money flows, right? Like all these grants and all these initiatives that they create through Congress, right? And some of them are actually really destructive. Some of them are ridiculous, and it's like that would have never gotten funded if it wasn't for the printing press, right? And so it's that too. It's like fix the money, fix the world.
He also talks about that in the Bitcoin Standard, how before like the printing, before 1973 or whatever, before that, like politicians actually had to campaign on what they were going to do with the budget.
Yeah.
Like, here's how much money we got. Here's what we're going to do with it. And that was part of your vote. It's like, oh, that would be a good use. No, that's a waste of money. Now it's just like, who cares? We can just spend everywhere, do whatever.
Yeah.
And all of it, most of it just causes more harm than good.
And then there's no accountability. And this is the thing I don't like about, two-party politics in the United States, right? Because it's like the politicians always just divert the blame to the other party, right? When things go wrong. So it's like, give me all this money. I'm going to do all of this stuff. I'm going to do this. And when things blow up, it's like, it's those people's fault. It's the Republicans' fault. It's the Democrats' fault. And it's like, and people buy it, they swallow it up because it's like two-party politics. It's like, it provides avenues for politicians to escape accountability and blame, and by creating division, hostility, hatred among Americans.
But it's even worse in one-party states, like in California, right? That's a one-party state. It doesn't matter who you vote for. It's going to be blue. Think about what's happened there. The billions of dollars that went into the homelessness crisis and all of that, and all of it disappeared, and homelessness is worse. Like, and no one stops to ask questions, and no one is going to vote the other way. No one's even looking at it. It's crazy.
I think about this, and I think about like what's happening here in El Salvador, and people call Bukele a dictator and stuff like that, or people will reference him as a king. I'm cool with that. I'm cool with that because when things go wrong, it's like, who to blame.
Whose fault it is.
Whose fault it is, right?
There's no games being played.
Yeah, there's no games being played. It's ultimate accountability. And so when I look at what's happening in California, and you talk about how it's been just captured by the Democrats, that's actually because of the people, right? That's the people keep on voting for the Democrats,
and they'll keep doing it,
and they love it. It seems like they love the degeneracy over there. They don't see it. They want to think of themselves as high and mighty, progressive. We're better, than those Republicans are, and they'll go as far as denying reality.
Yeah, but in all fairness, a lot of California is geographically, it's way more red and way more logical. It's just the cities have so many people, and they're all the Democrat. Not to say voting for one is better than the other. God forbid. I'm just saying, like, there are people with, I don't want to talk shit about Californians is what I mean. There are some smart, so critical thinking people there.
But that's the problem I see with basic government when it's a large geographical region, right? And it's the same thing what I have a problem with the federal government right now, because it's like you got Washington, D.C. creating rules for people across a vast body of land,
right,
with all types of different geographic regions, and have their own, their own ecosystems in a way. And it's like, how are these people going to make decisions for all of America?
Yeah, different values, different interests. Look at California. It could be like 3 or 4 different countries.
Yeah.
Like with countries, not even states, with their own economies. Like Southern California can be entertainment, Northern California, or even just the Bay Area could be tech. Central California is farmland.
Yeah.
And all of those are huge economies with different value systems, different people with different culture, everything.
Yeah. Like in a lot of ways, like this, I think the way we think about democracy, or the way we govern ourselves in the United States, is antiquated. It doesn't make sense. Like, why are you going to have representatives that don't actually represent you, don't represent your interests, right? And it's like, why give into that system? Again, I'm a fan of the idea of decentralized city states. It's like, where your politicians, or, whoever, whatever you want to call them, your leaders, they're accountable. Like, you know where they live. You see them on a daily basis. They're connected to the community. Right now, Washington, D.C. isn't connected to the United States.
They're not public servants.
Yeah.
But hang on. Is it antiquated, or did it get hijacked along the way? Because the United States is still one of the most decentralized modern countries. Like look at what happened with COVID, right? You could still go to a different state and experience different rules. You didn't get that in other places, in most other places. Like the United States as a country is still very decentralized. It's the federal government started getting so big since essentially the creation of the Federal Reserve.
Yeah.
Right. But before that, we don't even have a concept for what life could have been like before that. It was so far before. All we've known is the fiat paradigm.
Yeah. And same thing with the European Union, right? And how they basically are now like taking over power little by little, right? They once the euro came about, it was like, okay, now you see Europe now melding more together. Before it was just a bunch of different countries, and it was cool because you can go to one country and experience a whole different culture and a whole different language and
different currency.
And now that's starting to lose its magic. All of Europe is starting to just kind of become one. And so the idea of being multicultural, right, is actually requires decentralization.
Yeah, well, and that's why the powers that be just, the one world government argument, all that, and you destroy all culture, and then you just have an homogenous thing that's run by a totalitarian system.
That's not accountable to anyone, and nobody knows who's in charge, right?
I'm sure some people, the ones on the top know.
Yeah, but the ones on the bottom are just like, okay, well, who's the one running the show? Nobody really even knows,
Yeah, right. Okay, so that was Dave Smith. Who's next? I think we go into Ron Paul next.
Yeah.
I think we live witnessing now.
Well, there's
around 110, around a minute.
Yeah, so he brings up a good point here, right? And it's I forgot what it was actually.
Let's watch it.
Yeah.
It's going to change. The bubble always ends, and it ends either by the government wising up, which they never do, spend less money and quit printing money.
Is there a solution to the debt crisis that you see right now if you were in power?
Not under these conditions, but there is a solution. It can be found, in freedom. So you have to realize that the government can't. They created this problem. So, but it's going to be very hard because it's very painful to quit spending. I mean, too many special interest groups. It's a ton of them, rich and poor and everybody. And then you have the military-industrial complex. You have domestic spending. You have foreign policy spending, and but unfortunately, it's not just been one party. It's been both parties that spend. And so I'm very independent-minded very often on, blaming he did this and he did that.
That's what you were saying.
To get elected, so the people have responsibility too. But I think that's
what I was talking about. California,
yeah.
People have the responsibility.
I thought there was an awakening with COVID. Right. When the people finally say, what are you doing this to me for? And the whole thing is people waking up. The government took over the medical care system and gave all those directions. They were tyrants. They didn't allow us to make the medical decisions, and they control. They did this in education. Right. So it's the taking over the monetary policy. The symbolic date or the real date I pin it down is that August 15th. When there was going to be no restraint on the Federal Reserve, no restraint on the special interests, no restraint whatsoever. So this is the reason why we have so much special interest and so many lobbyists in Washington, and they really run the show.
Well, Dr. Paul, I want to get your thoughts today.
Yeah, you can stop it there. So that's the thing, right? It's like you're asking politicians who are controlled by special interests to cut off their source of power, which is the printing press, by adopting Bitcoin. It's so illogical, when you think about it. It's like all your efforts are going to be wasted because who's going to cut off the hand that feeds them? Right?
Well, but what's interesting about even just kind of what he just said in a roundabout way is like, imagine these politicians, Cynthia Loomis, like supporting Bitcoin because they see it as another lobby to make their money, right? And maybe they see the writing on the wall with fiat, and good for them, and that's awesome if they do. But just look at it like it's just another lobby, another super PAC. The drama with Coinbase or whatever, and Coinbase going to DC. Maybe it's not even drama, but like this is a big industry. There's a lot of money. a lot of manpower, a lot of resources, and they want to see their industry. They want to see the best conditions possible. And so these politicians see it and like, cool, well, this can be my way to continue getting paid. And it's almost outside of the repercussions of fiat money printer, right? Because they know
Yeah, it's
Bitcoin
like
could keep going up.
they're riding the Bitcoin wave, you know? And it's like as a politician, yeah, if you see the old fiat paradigm on its way out, it's like, well, let me jump on this new thing. I don't know.
I mean, it's smart.
I don't know how sincere they are, right?
Well, Cynthia Loomis is next, and let's talk about sincerity with her. Do you have anything more about that?
Yeah, no. So I do want to talk about Ron Paul. So Ron Paul's
Okay.
so he's 88, right?
Is he 88 already?
88 years old. He was the reason why I was, well, one of the reasons why I was red pilled. I remember watching him on the debate stage with like Rudy Giuliani and all these people. I forgot who else was there at the time.
Was that in 09 or before then?
Yeah, it was around that time. Maybe even prior to 08. Something, maybe it was in 08. Yeah. Where I first discovered him. And I was like, holy cow, I can't believe this guy's talking so much sense. Prior to that, I thought it was only the Democrats that I could vote for because, you know, I didn't want more perpetual war under George W. Bush, right?
Yeah.
And then I hear Ron Paul and he's just talking sense, man. He's just talking American policies, like, you know, following the Constitution, you know, more freedom, more liberty. And it's like, wow. It was like, I've never heard anything like that before. It was a breath of fresh air. So that led me down, you know, the rabbit hole, the libertarian rabbit hole. And that's where, you know, a lot of now, I guess my philosophical foundation comes from, was from that time. And the other thing about Ron Paul is like, you know, he's been so consistent, very principled throughout his whole career as a congressman. And it wasn't until like that 08 run and the 2012 run that he gained traction. His message gained traction. It took like, I don't know how many years, 30 years, right? He didn't like become popular until his 60s. His message didn't resonate till he was like 60 years old. So it just, for me, it's like one of those things where it's like, you know, keep on fighting the good fight, because you never know when your time, you know, to step up and be a leader comes, you know, even in your 60s, like Ron Paul, and still going to this day. God bless him.
Well, you could say the same thing about Bernie Sanders.
Yeah, but
On the other side of things, he's been consistent, you know?
yeah, a consistent socialist and communist, consistently wrong for sure.
Yeah, but I mean, he's stuck with his message, and he kind of became a leader figure in the 2016 elections.
I just don't see him. He's not principled, but it's also because he comes from a philosophical thought, a philosophical, you know, school of thought that isn't principled, right? It's like communism.
Dude, I saw a tweet about Karl Marx's like personal life recently.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty crazy, actually.
He was a dirtbag, bro.
He was a scumbag, like drunk. Yeah, always expected everyone else to take care of him. Like
Didn't take care of his family, right?
yeah.
I can't remember if his kids committed suicide, stuff like that. It's like, yeah, he was a horrible father, horrible human being, and then he unleashed this plague on the world. It's like probably a spawn of Satan, you know? If we're looking at it from a spiritual level, I definitely believe that he could have been possessed by demons for sure.
Well, and you just think about like, was it the Bolshevik Revolution in Russia that was the Communist Revolution? Is
I
that
don't
the
know.
one? But like, to think that that kind of philosophy caused so much death and strife and turmoil just from some dude who had an alcohol problem and was a scumbag. Like, it's crazy.
Yeah.
The power of one person.
Exactly.
It's crazy.
Yeah. So if one person can like unleash this much evil in the world, you know, can one person unleash goodness in the world? You know, I don't know. Or is that something that, you know, has to come about from each individual finding their power within, you know, the slice of the divine within them and creating goodness in this world?
I feel like the bad news stories we hear about, and the good ones we don't hear as much about.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure it's like an equal capacity for potential there.
Yeah. I do want to go back to Ron Paul, because he does talk about Bitcoin. I don't know if it was in that clip. Maybe it was at the beginning of that clip. But basically, he says that, you know, Bitcoin, in order to satisfy its role as money, needs to become a unit account, right? And right now, everybody still uses the dollar as a unit account. So he's like, Bitcoin hasn't gotten there yet. But it's gonna take time. And you know, in order for that to happen, though, people need to embrace freedom, right? Like, and I'm guessing what he's saying there is like, free market competition. It also, like, the idea that the Federal Reserve controls interest rate is where it all starts, right? It's where all the control starts. There's not a market for money right now. And so, it was an interesting argument from my perspective, hearing Ron Paul talk about it, because he's so well versed in, monetary theory.
You also need some sort of stability, less volatility, and a lot of that is, I guess, based in the interest rates and the amount of money they're printing too. So it's like, how do you create a unit of account from Bitcoin when you still have to use dollars on the back end to buy your materials or whatever?
Yes, in the United States, because, right?
Well, here too.
Yeah, in a sense, it's starting to change here from my perspective, right? Like, I feel more that Bitcoin is a unit account here, like, than anywhere else.
No, man. But like, where are you going to buy something where they're not converting the dollar price to sats for you to pay it?
Yeah, but I think it's going to happen here first. Like, I see,
for sure.
And I think that the fact that we've been in the $50,000 to $70,000 range now is also a big factor. And I think that, once we get to like the $500,000 range, it's Bitcoin is only going to go up from there a lot slowly, right? I think Peter,
maybe, unless those hyper Bitcoinization arguments are real, or it could just be a matter of weeks and all the nation states are putting all their money in because they don't want to miss the train. Like, there was a really good article by, I forget which exchange the guy wrote it. So yeah, maybe a little bit of propaganda, but he's like, once it starts, man, like, it's not going to hang out at 1 million. It's going all the way.
Yeah.
Like, because for Bitcoin to be at $1 million, like, how much money needs to go into Bitcoin for every Bitcoin to be worth $1 million? Like, by that point, people are going to get the picture, which goes back to Trump, right? Like, or RFK. If either of them win and they really do start buying a Bitcoin as a reserve asset, what do you think other countries are going to do? Like, and that could be
the domino, right?
The domino. It could be the catalyst for this hyper Bitcoinization thing. And then you really see what happens. I mean, dude, we saw it in every bull run, right? Like, how fast did we go from 10,000 to 20 in 2018, like end of 2017?
I just, the amount of capital and inflow that's required for Bitcoin to like go on another exponential bull run, right? From like 1 million to 10 million.
It needs to come from states.
But it's a sea of money, right? It's different when Bitcoin went from $10 to $100, from $100 to $1,000, from $1,000 to $10,000.
Retail can do that. Even from 10 to 20,000, retail did that.
Yeah.
But even ETFs aren't moving it that much now.
Yeah.
If they're playing by the rules.
You're talking about trillions and trillions. It would require like a huge paradigm shift across the world. Like, the whole world would have to reorient their thinking, and at the same time, basically.
But what's to say it wouldn't happen fast?
Yeah, there's
all it would take is the United States, the main, the big currency in the world right now, to be like, yeah, we're gonna get into this, and everyone's gonna get FOMO. The presidents of the world are gonna get the same FOMO we experience every day.
It's funny. Every bull run, I think that's happening. Right, I'm like,
I know.
Oh, dude,
this is happening. It. The institutions are in. This is it.
Hyper Bitcoinization. Yeah. And then, the bear comes and you're like, oh,
yeah,
humbled.
They got me again. Yeah. I bought at the top again.
Yeah.
Is that it for Ron Paul?
Yeah. Shout out to Ron Paul, man. Absolute legend.
Yeah, he started the whole end the Fed. Right? That whole movement, that saying came from him, right? And the Fed.
Well, it goes back to what Dave Smith was saying with me. Like, when I found out how money works, I was pissed. Like, I was like, holy cow. Like, I realized we're all just slaves. Like, they're just milking us through the money supply. It's a different mechanism, but we're all just slaves. And I felt like, my dignity as a human being was like attacked. Once I found out how money works, I'm like, holy cow. And I figured that, I took this message that Ron Paul was preaching. I started preaching it to people I know. And I thought once they found out, they'd be like, what? Are you kidding me? Let's change this. Let's get on board. Let's vote for Ron Paul. Let's end the Fed. People were like, what are you talking about? Why, like, nobody cared.
Yeah, my life is good. I got my TV and my take out.
Yeah, it's a rare breed that like takes the time to understand how money works and then actually like looks at it as a you know, as an insult to their dignity as a human being.
A rare breed or just rare circumstance? I mean, a lot of people are just struggling to make ends meet, and it's like I don't have the energy to learn. Even when it's just politics, forget about money. Like people just don't. They claim, they believe they don't have the energy to just like learn about what's going on, so educate themselves about to vote. Instead, they watch a couple YouTube videos and that's it.
Yeah, I don't know, man. You know who? I don't know who said it. I think it was Henry Ford who was like, you know, if people ever found out how the money supply works, like there'd be a revolution overnight.
Yeah.
I don't think that's the case. I think if people were told or they understood, they'd be like,
Well, maybe back in Henry Ford's day, that would be true.
yeah, where everyone was a lot
People
more
still cared.
intellectual, had depth, had some like moral grounding to them. Where
Yeah, they still had some dignity.
everybody's been watered down by fiat at this point, huh?
Everyone is so, no one even cares. It's like what I was saying about California. No one cares
Yeah.
about what's going on and where those billions of dollars are going. Like, no one cares anymore because they can live on credit. Like they've got this system lined up where you can just stay in this rat race and get your soma, you know, get your pills to just stay content, get your likes.
Crazy. Where are we going to next?
So next is Cynthia Loomis, and we kind of already talked about this, but I kind of feel like she's at a pep rally. She's like reading off a paper. Watch it real quick. It's quick.
In the Senate of the United States to establish a Bitcoin strategic reserve, a network of secure storage vaults, purchase program, and other programs to ensure the transparent management of Bitcoin holdings of the federal government.
So it feels like she's at a pep rally. She's obviously got no teleprompter. She's holding it there like citizens of the United States. You know, it felt like very like patriotic in form. I mean, I like what she's saying, and she's always leading the front with legislation and stuff like that. Like, you know, but just at in the context of the vibe of Bitcoin 2024, the politicians being there, and then she's up there like, here we go.
Yeah, yeah. Again, it's, you know, I would have never ever heard of Cynthia Loomis if it wasn't for Bitcoin. So there's also this aspect where politicians are looking at Bitcoin to raise their personal brand.
Well, you know, and she's from Wyoming. And, you know, a lot of people say Wyoming is the most free state in the union still, and they're all into Bitcoin. I mean, they had the first banks that allowed crypto and that stuff. The first place you could register a DAO. So, I mean, you could argue it's she's not just doing it for her brand, but there's something about, I mean, maybe the brand of the state of Wyoming.
Maybe. Also,
But whatever, good for them. Then that means there's a jurisdiction you can go move to and know you have those protections. Just like Texas and even what Florida saying, like, you know, protecting your right to self-custody. No
yeah,
matter what the federal government says, we're not going to enforce that.
I just wish politicians would talk more about, hey, you know, I'm introducing legislation to get rid of all restrictions on Bitcoin. You know, that'd be a lot better than like, so the federal government can buy Bitcoin. It's like, who cares?
Yeah, but you and I aren't in those positions of power where you got to think about criminals and illicit activity, like real criminals. I'm not even saying like whatever, like stupid things that governments think are important, but like, you know, people that kidnap children or whatever, and then like you're laundering money. Like, I think there are legitimate concerns with that, even if a lot of the times those, I guess, agencies are captured. Hi, Lily. You want to say hi? I don't know what this is about. Why me, Lily? Why me? Why not your daddy over there? Anyway, okay, so who's after Cynthia Loomis?
Russel Brand.
Russel Brand. And Russel Brand comes at this from the, you know, he talks a lot about the censorship stuff. I think he's there with the Rumble guy because he has his Rumble deal. Let's watch this real quick.
Recognize how tyranny and power may guide us towards dystopia. Let me illustrate that further. We're being encouraged to imagine that the dystopias of the future might resemble the despotism of the 20th century, that we might fall foul to militaristic 20th century style demagoguery. We're being taught to fear fascism. And of course, fascism is something that ought to be feared because indeed, Bitcoin and Rumble, the technologies that we're talking about, are about
Bitcoin and Rumble.
individual freedom.
Yeah, I just feel like everyone's pushing their own agenda there on the Bitcoin crowd.
The phrase that I heard that resonates is technological feudalism. When you consider the mounting bureaucracies and the incredible power that's being accrued by groups like Alphabet, Google, because we are talking about monopoly, centralized power.
Yeah, so yeah, he's talking about concentrating resources. Snowden talks about this too later, a bit more technologically, I guess. But, you know, it's true. I mean, these big companies concentrate all this power, and it's all centralized, the attention we're giving to other creators on Twitter and whatnot. And, you know, I know, Paul and Primal, like the Noster app, they were there. But, like, how much attention was given to Noster at Bitcoin 2024, you know? I mean, I guess Noster is not exactly Bitcoin. But the point is like, all of the Bitcoin social media is still on Twitter. It's a centralized company. You know, and then where's the ethos there? It's like, we're not sovereign over our communications on this mass scale of media and this stuff. And like, we use Twitter to market our shit and we're to share our perspectives and to build our brand. And that's all great. But like, it's true. Like it doesn't follow our values as Bitcoiners. And Noster does, but we're not using it. I mean, if you do, it's just a big circle jerk of Bitcoin content.
Yeah. You know, I don't know. I don't have a problem with centralized companies and centralized, apps, as long as like I have the freedom and choice to use other apps. Like for instance, there's Orange Pill app, right? It's a centralized company. It's like they got a database of Bitcoiners and stuff like that. But if you know the founders, you know the mission, and you trust them, and like, what if we created an app? Right? Where it's like a Sovereignty Studio app, meet local Bitcoiners here in El Salvador, and like it's run by me and you, right? What's wrong with that? If you trust us. So all I'm saying is, like, I like open source initiatives, but I also don't have a problem with closed source initiatives. I don't know if that's what you call it, like a closed source project or something like that, where there's a level of trust in there, and then you have to decide whether that's right for you.
Yeah, well, in the context of what Russel Brand was saying, it was really just about, like, these are our mass communications around the planet, not like a localized app or a local network.
Gotcha.
Talking about just how we expect to, like, if there's a revolution going on in some country and we can't see it because Twitter decides not to show it to us.
Yeah. So that's what's dangerous, right? It's when these companies become like monoliths, right? Is that the word?
Yeah, well, and that's what's already kind of happening. I mean, where else? You go one place to post photos. You just go to Instagram. You go one place to post things like tweets and like Threads or whatever is trying to compete with that. But you go one place to watch videos. Like, it's kind of just, I would argue it's kind of, whether it's how the internet was destined to be or because of it getting captured by big money. I think a lot of people believed in the early days that the internet would be this beacon of decentralization and hope and freedom of speech and no censorship. But like, maybe we do just gravitate to one thing because we know that's where all the people are.
It's the network effect.
Yeah, so not to like discount that, but anyway, Russel Brand's talking about that, and it does segue well into Edward Snowden.
Yeah,
but I
haven't seen any of these, by the way. That's why my commentary's lacking. I didn't watch the Edward Snowden or the Russel Brand one.
Well, Sailor's next, and I just want to watch the beginning of Sailor. It's the live stream. We obviously have our things to say about Sailor, but
well, it's interesting watching him emerge. Like as a Bitcoin action figure, almost like he's becoming a character.
He's a celebrity status. Yeah. I mean, and I know they probably did intros in the music, like for most of the speakers, but he's standing up there. Everyone's got their
cameras out.
I am delighted to be here in Nashville, a city known for music, a city known for freedom, and I'm honored to follow Senator.
Yeah, well, so that's all. I mean, like I said, I'm sure they did kind of intros like that for everyone, but just hearing that guitar music play, and he's going out there, and it's like the stadium cinematic cameras, and everyone's like, yeah, like the cell phones in the air. I'm like, cult celebrity status.
Yeah, for sure.
Here we are.
Yeah, he is. Like, we haven't done this podcast yet or haven't done this video, but like, you know, when you talk about the layers of occults, he's definitely in the priest class. You know, he's the thought leader. He's
the Pope now.
Intellectual powerhouse. Yeah. And so, you know, people love him because also he's smart and he's very articulate and he has a lot of good ideas. You know, where I differ with Saylor on is the idea that Bitcoin should be a medium of exchange. So he sees it just primarily as a store of value, even to the extent that you should just die with your Bitcoin. Like you shouldn't even put them to work. You know?
Yeah, and he's definitely, I guess, pro-state in a lot of ways. Maybe I shouldn't say that. Maybe I'm not terribly sure, but
well, I listened to a little bit of his speech, and it was, you know, he just sees the state as something that we're going to have to contend with.
Yeah,
that's the impression I got.
And he doesn't bother with the like, do we need it or not? Like here we are saying, oh, fuck the government. He's just like, dude, there it is. We got to just deal with it.
Yeah,
yeah.
And this is how you deal with it.
And he is really doing an attack on fiat, right? With the master stock and buying the Bitcoin. Like it is genius everything he's doing. The question is like, what is the underlying driving force behind him?
Yeah.
Is it just to make more money? Is it because he believes in something, or is it because he's an engineer and he just sees how the universe works and how physics works and like this is just natural, this is logical?
Yeah, there's still some mystery about Saylor from my perspective too.
Yeah, and that's it's kind of like Elon Musk, right? Especially like from a few years ago. These billionaires keep like this mystery aura to their brand because that's what keeps them able to leverage certain situations really well.
Interesting.
Yeah. And so Michael Saylor has definitely, I think, leaned into that technique.
You know, yeah. And when I think about it, Michael Saylor and I guess just the whole engine that he's building right now. I mean, he could be a powerhouse for centuries. You know, if Bitcoin really becomes this, you know, money that
his legacy, you mean? Yeah.
Yeah. So, and he has the intellectual power, I guess, and to actually pull that off. You know, he thinks in generations. He can think far out there where it's like, whoa, that's crazy that he had that thought, you know. And he's the cool thing about him is that he shares those thoughts and it's like mesmerizing in the sense that you're like, you just got a glimpse into the mind of a genius.
Yeah, and then you can't help but get fired up when you hear him.
Yeah.
You know, everything he talks about, it's just like, man, like blows your mind and you get fired up.
Yeah, and the counter argument to like what we're saying as far as like he's still pretty much a status in his views. You know, he wants the dollar to exist, to coexist with Bitcoin, and you know, he wants you to KYC and AML, and he wants all of this stuff, or he maybe he's, you know, he talks about it like he wants it almost, but I don't know. The argument there is he's playing 5D chess, right? So, you know, he's a big figure, you know, he's a big target, and so he has to like pay lip service to the current power structure.
Yeah, well, there's also just a grounding reality check too, which is this dude runs. I mean, when he started, what was it worth, billions or just hundreds of millions? Whatever. You don't have that much money without the government knowing, in a bank, whatever. And so the Bitcoin blockchain is completely transparent. Newsflash, right? Like, there's no way he's putting millions of dollars, hundreds of millions of dollars, billions of dollars into Bitcoin without the whole world knowing, or at least anyone that matters, or at least anyone in his jurisdiction that's like doing the rules. And he knows that.
Yeah.
So it's like, why even go down the route of fighting for no KYC or any of that shit? Because it's never going to apply to him. He will always be under the eye, the all-seeing eye of whatever government's in power. And it's true. And so it's like, yeah, why waste your time? Why waste your breath? I don't blame you.
Yeah. Yeah. But I wonder how, you know, how much he considers that could be dangerous to, you know, just normal everyday people. The fact that there isn't privacy on the blockchain and that you know, the government does know when you move your Bitcoin, and, you know, like for him, you know, it's not a concern, right? But for the average citizen who's trying to escape tyranny or trying to shield themselves from tyranny, it's like, that could be a big concern and could be dangerous.
Here's how I think people like him might see it. Maybe not him in particular, but okay. You got hyper Bitcoinization on the horizon, potentially. But case in point is you're going to have Bitcoin from 60,000 to whatever 60 million one day. As if the money printer continues, it's going to suck up all the wealth in the world. So how much Bitcoin does he have? He has over 1% of the supply now,
Like 200,000. MicroStrategy does.
Or
I don't know.
MicroStrategy. I mean, I'm pretty sure he has over 1% of the supply at this point.
It's something like 200,000. So that would be like 1%.
So he's got more than 1% of the supply. Imagine if all of those are worth however many millions of dollars you want to imagine each one day. So we're talking about nation state level wealth one day.
Yeah,
if not more. Especially if the nation state doesn't have Bitcoin.
Like El Salvador has like, I don't know, 6,000 Bitcoin.
Hardly any.
Well, 6,000
compared to MicroStrategy.
Yeah, when you're talking about like nation state status, right? Like, yeah,
right. Only 6. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
I think
that's why I say like his power can extend centuries into the future.
So when we talk about the KYC shit, like it's almost irrelevant. And he talks about this too, how Bitcoin is a way of transferring value over time,
space and time.
Yeah, not just space though. The way he talks about time, right? That's what's really valuable. What's really groundbreaking is being able to send it over time, because the value is going to go up over time, not down. Like you never know if the dollar paper gets irrelevant or no one wants gold anymore, whatever. But the proof of the scarcity of Bitcoin will only get more valuable with time.
You know what he said? I think it was him. Did you hear his speech, Matt? No. I think he was talking about how the AIs are going to want Bitcoin.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's seeing way out into the future.
That's what I'm saying. So what I was getting at is he's going to be at science fiction wealth levels one day, like evil genius, like spaceship layer, not evil, but whatever, wealth level. And all of these concerns that we have as plebs just don't matter, because the amount of change one can put into effect, that one can enact with that amount of wealth.
Yeah, he's going to shape the future of humanity.
He
right?
really could.
Yeah.
He theoretically could. So all this stuff that we're talking about is a waste of breath.
Yeah, he probably looks at it at such a low level from where his thinking's at.
I have no idea how he looks at it, but like, yeah, if we were to give him the benefit of the doubt, it's like, yeah, he could change the trajectory of humanity with all these Bitcoins he has if this gamble pays off, and we'll all be the better for it. And all this shit about tyranny isn't going to matter.
Man, hopefully he's, hopefully he's a good guy, right? Hopefully he's one of the good guys and not the evil genius.
I mean, look at the Sailor Academy. Like, he does good things. He's definitely trying to, I don't know, put a good foot forward or whatever. But yeah, I have no idea if he's a good guy or not. How do you ever know if someone's a good guy or not? So you get to know him and hang out and feel him out.
Actions. Yeah, you know what? This is something I was thinking about. Like, vibe checks are big. Intuition is big. And, there's only so much you can get from looking at someone across the distance, especially
on a screen.
On a screen, yeah. And so, yeah, I don't know, but it's a mystery.
Yeah, I mean, even me saying earlier about RFK, like, I get a good vibe from him. I feel like his heart is open. I feel like he's got good intentions. But what do I know? I've never met the guy.
Yeah,
never shook his hand. Whatever.
You think that goes a long way into getting, like, to feel someone out, like their physical presence, the handshake, how their mannerisms, their just overall aura.
Yeah, well, you got non-verbal communication is like a majority of how we communicate. And then intuition starts with the body.
Yeah.
Intuition comes from the body. Just like when you have a weird feeling in your stomach, because it means like something's wrong, like. So yeah, I think it's really important to be in person. Not to say that your mind can't discern things and you can't be intellectual about it, but I think you're gonna try to. Well, I don't know why we're talking about this anymore, but if you're gonna try to,
man, we talk about whatever we want.
If you're gonna say like, yeah, Michael Saylor is a good person, I believe, because of X, Y, Z. Well, I would never. I don't know. I've never met the guy, right? It's like with Bukele, the president, right? He seems like a great guy. Look at everything he's doing. Like, I've got no reason to think he's not a good guy.
Yeah.
But I've never met him. I've never hung out with him. So like, why make a judgment?
Yeah.
I'll just appreciate what he's doing, and that's that.
That's how I roll.
If I don't have an opinion on him, it's just whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, that said, people in power, man. Yeah.
So check this out. I mean, this was kind of our first show where we brought in, extra clips and had a different dynamic in our show. It was cool.
I think we should close with Snowden and Eric Kaysen. Those are our last two.
Yeah, let's close with Eric Kaysen.
Yeah,
Eric's
well,
the man.
Snowden
He's
will
my
lead into it.
yeah, he's like a Bitcoin spirit animal for sure.
So what Snowden talks about is exactly what we're kind of alluding to. I mean, in our last episode about the Bitcoin oligarchs potentially capturing Bitcoin, but also just what happens at a state level when they get so involved with Bitcoin. And he's, let's watch it.
You're liberal, doesn't matter whether you're conservative. If you stick out, if you stand out, you are going to become
And basically just the nature of public blockchain and tyranny.
If you stick out, if you stand out, you are going to become non-normative, or rather anomalous. What
I can hear it.
afraid, is likely to happen quite quickly. All of the transaction information that they can get, well, the Bitcoin blockchain is available for anyone for free at any time, right? And how do you train these models? You need learning sets. You need training data. You need data sets. So they're going to pull everything they can. They're going to feed it through these things, and they're going to try to teach them originally. I think this is going to be the easiest thing. What does a normal transaction look like?
I think there's a second clip. I think we get the idea of this, but he's talking just about AIs being trained to detect transactions. And so soon, like, you'll never be able to hide.
Well, it's not only that. He's talking about the transparency of the blockchain.
Yeah.
How everything is, open. It's an open ledger. And like, yeah, we understand the why, right? Like, so, all the Bitcoins can be accounted for, and, everyone, it's part of the whole security model of Bitcoin. But it also comes with a set of challenges, right? Like that Bitcoiners are going to have to overcome.
Let's watch the second one there.
All of these people who are coming up on stage and saying these wonderful things about how much they love Bitcoin, how much they love you, how they're going to do all these wonderful things to make something better. The United States is the only advanced democracy on the planet that I'm aware of that does not have a basic privacy law. We have the Fourth Amendment, right? That only binds the federal government. That doesn't do diddly squat to protect you against corporations. And the government, for 90% of their work, probably 95% of their work in intelligence nowadays, they simply go to corporations and ask them for information. It's an end run around the Constitution.
Yeah, so he's just saying how, like, we have no privacy law. The United States is like one of the only developed nations with no money privacy law. And so, like, when governments work with corporations, they can collect all that data, and the government gets it, right, and just go around the Constitution.
Yo, privacy is a big, so right now it feels like, look, right now it kind of feels like you can live your life. It's not a big deal. People don't care to be that private, right? Like everybody's putting their life on social media. Everyone has iPhones. They take pictures, it gets uploaded to the iCloud, Google Drive. Like but how they're using all this data in the background, and what happens when they finally decide to, bring the clamps down, like how to utilize all this data. Like that's going to be interesting.
Yeah, man. I mean, even like look at Venmo, right? It's like you can broadcast your transactions to your friends publicly, like it's a social network.
Yeah, and I wonder about that. Like, what's that all about?
Well, it's the same thing with Zaps on Nostr. You can zap someone as a tip. Like, oh, that's a good post. You zap them.
Yeah, I understand that, but that's because you're tipping someone for content generation.
Yeah. Although I don't know how public or private the zaps are. I haven't gotten too deep.
The whole Venmo thing weirded me out. Actually, man, yeah, I was all weirded out when this first came. I was like anti-iPhone, because I was like, what is going on? It's such a weird concept. Like, I take pictures, it gets uploaded to someone's server, and
yeah, all your metadata.
Yeah, and so yeah, I don't know. Like I don't know how it's all going to be utilized in the future. Right now, they say it's for advertisements, so they can build a social graph and give you better advertisements and so forth. But
that's why they listen to you on your phone too.
Yeah.
While it's there on the desk.
Supposedly, right? Like that could be just a cover for like some more nefarious thing. Like, what was that movie? Machina? Something Deus Machina?
Yeah, Deus Ex Machina.
Yeah. And like he was basically using everyone's...
It's funny how trippy and revolutionary that movie was back then. And now it's just like, oh yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Of course they're reading my facial expressions as I'm looking at my phone.
Right? It was to train his...
training AI models.
Yeah. And then you think about, you seen the movie Her too, right?
Yeah.
And so it's like, that's normal now. Like that, when it came out, I was like, Holy cow, can you imagine? Like everyone has like a AI in their ear and like a friend that they walk around with that tells them all the information, and now it's like for real.
Did you see what was launched today? It's called Friend. And I think it's a half satirical product. I don't know the founder, but I guess he did something during COVID too. But it's basically a necklace you wear. It's a microphone that just records everything going on. And then it'll send you text messages here and there to comment on what's going on. So if you're hanging out with friends or you're just talking to yourself or you're watching TV, whatever, it'll pick it all up and then send you a text message going, yo, dude, your friends are talking shit. You should say something. Or like, it's just like, it's called
Like somebody who got your back,
it's like
your
it's
AI who has your
it's your
back.
imaginary friend.
Yeah,
Right?
wow.
And it sends you text messages.
It's here, dude. That's what I'm saying. It's gonna get weird. It's gonna get so weird. Like, think about it. You know, all these incels, they're gonna have AI girlfriends, right?
Well, here's what I was thinking when I was watching Snowden. How do we know Snowden's not just an AI hologram?
We don't.
We're never going to see him. I mean, maybe we'll see him again, but like, what if we never see him again? Oh, he's just the guy in Russia, right? Like,
And this is gonna be how it is. This is what I'm saying. Michael Saylor could like literally be an AI like bot,
I think enough people see him in real life.
but no,
to-
into the future. Like his personality, his persona.
oh, for sure, he'll never die.
Yeah,
oh, yeah, he's obviously immortal. But
Yeah, that's so weird, dude. It's like now we're talking about, you know, we're getting real sci-fi now, right? Like you're talking about people existing and having influence beyond their death, like through their AI, personality.
Or what happens when they unfreeze Hal Finney? Right?
Dude, I don't even know what's going on. We don't know what kind of like, you know, afterlife technologies they got going on.
But isn't this trippy? This is where the Bitcoin 2024 conversation takes us, because we're talking about being able to extend your power and your wealth through time.
This is
It's
actually
like,
a really cool topic.
going to make Michael Saylor immortal.
Man, I didn't even realize that we'd get into this, but it's actually pretty trippy to think about, for sure.
I mean, just watching Snowden on the stage there, it was so trippy. And he's always like, the way he talks is like kind of annoying to me.
It's a bot. Feels like a bot.
Well, it sounds programmed, but I mean, there's people that just talk like in the way that they know works. So that's just them.
So who was the reporter? The only reason why I'm like, okay, maybe he's not a bot is because the reporter that broke it, I forgot, Glenn Greenwald.
In Hong Kong or whatever.
Yeah, like they had to hang out. But at the
That's
same
what I'm saying. What if he's a bot now? What if he was
Yeah.
alive? But what if he's just a hologram now?
Could be. We don't know, right? How can you verify? Don't trust, verify. Well, how can we verify?
Yeah, we can't.
Yeah.
But it's just really interesting because, as we know, any kind of entity like that with influence can just be there to push forth a narrative.
I think that's the future. I think we're gonna have all these talking heads that don't exist, and they're shaped and they're formed around, you know, being persuasive. You know, all the mannerisms and the inflection tones in their voice and their looks and their personality. Everything is meant to persuade the listener to like accept their messaging. Right? It's the new way of like brainwashing people or something like that, or the new way of propaganda, pushing propaganda. It's like we're gonna have all these, you know, AI generated talking heads, maybe.
And we don't know what's real or not. Like, I've been reading a lot of conspiracy theorists on Twitter talking about how Joe Biden's not real. They have this footage from the White House of a few years ago, I guess, of them bringing out a coffin. Like, and then you see all the different pictures of him looking different with different eyes, different ears, and like how easy it is. The masks technology, like just to put a mask on, like the CIA has had for 40 years. And it's like, first off, this could have been happening for decades. Like, real life politicians aren't real, right?
Yeah.
They're aliens, right? They're the grays. And then obviously now with AI, like things we watch, we don't know are real. But what happens when that like bleeds together, where we don't need a real president anymore? It's just literally an AI hologram, and no one fucking knows because no one goes to see it in real life. It's all just about videos. It's all just about the attention. Like, we'll never know.
Yeah. So this is why I like meeting people in real life. Number one, because with the internet now, with AI, it's just how you know, meeting people in real life is how you verify. But yeah, this is the other thing, goes back to the amorphous blob, you know, where we're getting into the outer rings of reality where you don't have control over it and anything could be projected there, which is manufactured, right? We only know I know that you're in front of me, right? I know that we're in this room. I know that we're in El Salvador.
Kind of.
Yeah.
one dimension of you is in this room.
Okay. Well, I don't know what you're talking about there, but the point is that this is stuff that's more tangible. It's within my inner reality ring. It's stuff that I can verify. It's stuff that I can control. And I've decided to not really pay attention to the outer reality ring, right? Because I can't verify anything. I don't know what's real or what's not there. I don't know what's being manufactured. I don't know what narratives are being pushed by, whatever power brokers exist or whatever, PR agencies are out there or special interests. Like, I don't know any of that. So I'm just like, my world, I'm going to focus on my world, and this outer reality ring, I'm just going to pay attention to it to like know what the normies are thinking.
So you know how the theory of relativity, it requires an observer for something to be real. Like if you're not like, is the cat in the box? You put a cat in a box. It's Schrodinger's cat. You put a cat in a box. You close the lid. When you open it again, is the cat going to be in there or not? Because while it's closed, it doesn't even exist because there's no observer. That's basically the concept here. This is quantum physics. So when we talk about the outer rings of the amorphous blob, does it actually exist if we're not focusing on it? Does it come to affect your life if we're not focused on it?
Only in the sense that it affects the normies, the NPCs, right? Like,
and they affect you
because they eat up the outer reality rings narratives, right? Like the COVID thing and stuff. And all of a sudden you see them wearing masks, right? You see them like mass formation psychosis going on, right? And then they want you to join in. They're like, conform. It's like literally an analogy for The Walking Dead, right? It's like they want your brains. They're like, no independent thought. Like, you have to join us. That's when it starts affecting you, right?
But get this. I mean, but you and I, we're still on Twitter. We still follow this stuff. And yeah, sure, we can use it as entertainment now and we can comment on it. But like, I had a friend during COVID. He's a pretty successful entrepreneur, content creator, makes a lot of money. And I would talk to him during COVID and after, and it was like his life never changed. He didn't even notice the masks. He like went to Europe. He like printed out one negative test and just reused it for like 6 months. Like never thought about it. He moved to Mexico. And I'm talking to him like, dude, aren't you frustrated? Like, don't you blah, blah, blah. He's like, he's focused on other things.
Well, so I was frustrated. That's because I saw myself like as part of society. That's the other thing, right? It's like I saw myself as integrated with all these people, and now less and less so, right? Like I see myself integrated with my friends and my family who are close to me, and like I'm just navigating the matrix in a sense, right? Like that's how I'm at where I'm at now, because like what people believe, their internal belief structure, and it's what drives them, right? And it's like I have no control over that, and I don't know what they're believing. I don't know what narratives, especially with the internet now. Like people can get into crazy like rabbit holes, and like you talk to them and like their worldview, you're like, whoa, that's what you believe? Like that's crazy, right? Like I could never operate like that. And so now I'm just like, yeah, I'm gonna take the same approach if anything like that ever happens again. It's like, you know what? I'm just gonna navigate the lines of the matrix as best I can and stay out of the crosshairs of whatever chaos is going on, because those people are programmed by a different operating system than I am.
And that's why we moved here. So there's like less of a likelihood, less surface area to have to get involved with that nonsense.
Yeah, exactly.
At least hopefully in the nearby future.
Or I don't know about that, right? Like I still think that like if there was something like that, a lot of people here would just go along with the prevailing narrative, right?
Well, but that's why we're putting our money on Bukele.
Well, in a sense, but the other reason I moved here is because there's enough sovereign-minded people who also operate like, hey, we're gonna operate based on like these, principles of reality, which we control, which we can verify, and those people, you can at least form a network, and so that helps you navigate the matrix, when it goes all crazy.
That's true.
Yeah.
We're in the wrong neighborhood for that right now, but we'll get there.
But we at least know people, you know what I mean? Like when COVID hit, it was hard to find people that just didn't go along with the narrative, right? And just didn't, and I was like, even people that I would expect would push back a little bit. They were like, "Oh my God, man, this is end of the world. Wear your mask. You're gonna kill grandma. What are you doing? You're so selfish." Like I was like, "Holy cow!" Like,
In Florida?
yeah.
It's funny, in Florida, I always just heard about how easy everything was
Well,
there.
it was Miami. You know what I mean? So I had to move. I had to move. Like when COVID hit, right? I moved 2 weeks after because Trump got on, his platform or whatever and said, "I'm going to extend the lockdowns. We're going to go we're going to go 2 more weeks or whatever." I was like, "Oh man, I knew what time it was then and there." And this is going back to like cities and like how they can control the region. Cities are socialist traps. Like high density is how socialists gain control, because it's like everyone's on a program anyways, because the city has to function. It has to be like organized in some type of way, where more rural areas is everybody just does what they want. They got land and
You got your own space.
Yeah.
When you're sharing all this space in cities, then,
yeah. You need some type of protocol to follow, and so the socialists get a hold of that protocol, and then they set the rules when they see the opportunity to take advantage of it.
I think cities are kind of shit coins no matter what.
Yeah.
Like when you have so many people in close quarters, you have so many like just too many crossover vibes. Like I don't want to hear my neighbors like upstairs or downstairs or next to hitting the wall, right? Like I don't want their Wi-Fi networks to hit my house.
Cities are fiat as fuck right now. Like I think cities could be designed in a way where like it's beautiful and like there's culture and everyone has space and there's like common areas that are well taken care of, like kind of like Europe reminds me a lot of this with the town squares and like just beautiful architecture and stuff like that. But this was during time where there was sound money. Gold was the standard.
But even then, I don't think people are meant to live in close quarters, like on top of each other. Humans are meant to be able to stretch your legs and be free, be out in the sun.
It depends because like that's how a lot of economies scale, because there's this what do you call that, separation of labor, specialization of labor that can occur and people can trade, and that's why cities form.
Yeah, but it's like putting the society's health below the development of the economy, which is essentially state.
Well, okay, cities versus villages, right? Like I definitely see the future of like a Bitcoin world in villages, citadels, for instance.
Definitely.
Yeah, where like there's an economy, there's specialization of labor, but like also what's healthy for the individual is also celebrated and held in value.
Well, think about a village or a tribe versus a city. Say you live in an apartment building and say there's 200 people in that building. Maybe like 4 of them, maybe 10 maximum. You live in a village or a tribe and there's 150 people, you know all of them. Like there's actual community.
Yeah.
So like in a city, you have all these people, but no community.
And that's the other thing. Yeah. So also there's no skin in the game, because it's like when you damage your reputation, it's like you can just get lost in the sea of people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go somewhere else.
Yeah. It's John Taylor Gatto, I think he talked about this, right? It's like the difference between living, like everyone in the city is just an end in the network, right? It's like, okay, it's not an actual community. It's like I get my mail delivered by UPS driver who gets switched out easily all the time, right? So it's a different driver all the time, right? It's not like I can't develop a deep relationship with that person, right? So it just becomes a relationship where it's like, what can I get from you in the city, versus like, hey, how you doing? You deep, intimate, maybe not too deep, but like, just more of an intimate connection. And so it's like in a city, it's all network. It's all ends of a network. In a community, there's more deep-seated relationships.
I think that's a good segue into Eric Kaysen.
Oh, I forgot about Eric. Okay, let's close on Eric.
Off,
yeah. We got to go too, dude.
What time is it?
First and foremost, I just want to
We've been going.
Fuck the state and fuck politicians. These people have destroyed our country through their immature and childish ideals that they believe they can spend money without any accountability. And this is why now 73% of all tax receipts go towards paying an unpayable amount of debt that is going to destroy our country. So I just want to be really clear that, like, it doesn't matter if it's red or blue. Either one of them are going to lie to us and fuck us over in the end and destroy our country by not fixing the money.
Boom.
Boom.
I don't think we have to say anything to that.
Nope. Eric Kaysen, you're the man.
All right. Thanks for joining, everyone. Check out sovereigntystudios.com. The first Build in El Salvador retreat is starting soon. We want you there.
It's going to be awesome. Have a great day, guys.